In this lesson, we're going to give an introduction to SOLIDWORKS assembly files. So to start off, we're actually going to start with a part, so new part, and I'm going to create a base that has 4 holes. So let's do a right click and sketch on the front plane, a center rectangle, and let's do this smart dimensions. We'll make it 10 inches by 4 inches. And while we're here, let's go ahead and put some circles. So I'm going to put some circles here. Actually, it'd be faster if I do it this way. I'm going to make a corner rectangle. And I'm going to start on this diagonal and on the other diagonal. There, we'll make this for construction. Click OK, and then I'm going to hit escape so I don't have anything selected. I'll make this point here, and then holding down Control and selecting the line, I'm going to make those 2 points be coincident with each other. This will eventually ensure as I move along here, so I need to click this point here and make it coincident with this line. This will ensure that the inside circle, the inside rectangle has the same proportions as the outside rectangle. So let's give ourselves some holes here, so I'm going to make a circle here on this. Just put it on all 4 vertexes. Then I'm finished with the circle command. So I'll hit escape so I have nothing selected. Then holding down Control, I'm going to select all 4 circles and set them equal to each other. And now we're ready to smart dimension. Let's let these holes have 0.5 inch diameter, and let's let the distance to the top be also 0.5 inch, and that fully defines everything. So we'll exit our sketch. We're going to do an extrude boss base, and so we can see what's going on. Let's make it be 0.5 inch out, and I'm going to save this part now as base, what we'll call it. Now with this part still open, I'll minimize this part, and I'm going to create a new and assembly. Okay. Now what SOLIDWORKS did is it looked at the files that I actually had open, and it realizes I have one file open, that's the base. If I had closed base, I would need to go to Browse and find it, but it's right there, so I'll click Open. And what it's going to do is it's going to let me drop anywhere on the coordinate system. Now I want to be very clear about this. I don't want to just drop it anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my mouse over to the side here, and as I approach the check mark, if you notice it snapped back. Let me do it one more time. I'm moving it over here. As I approach the check mark, it snaps to the center. I'm going to click OK. And what that does is it put the base coordinate systems lining up with the assembly coordinate systems. In other words, if I look at the front plane of the base right there, it's going to reside exactly on the front plane of the assembly. Unless there's an extreme reason not to do that, the first part that you bring into an assembly ought to be aligned with the coordinate system of the assembly. There's really no reason not to do it, like I said, unless there's some sort of particular case. So the top plane is aligned with the top plane of the base. The right plane is aligned with the right plane of the base. So my origin of the assembly now matches my origin of the base. Notice there's an F next to base. That tells me that this part is fixed. In other words, if I were to grab hold of the part and try to move it, so I moved it by holding down the left mouse button, it warns me the component is fixed and that it cannot be moved. Alright, let's put in another base. So I'm going to rotate around so we're looking at it with the z-axis kind of pointing in the upward direction. relative to the screen. And the most common way to insert parts is to go to the Insert Components button. Again, base is open, so I'll select it. And now I am just going to place it somewhere here on the screen, so check a mark here. Now this part can move. It's actually got all 6 degrees of freedom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the Mate button and begin locking down degrees of freedom. So the first ones that I want to do is this face of the original base and this face of the new base. I want to be coincident with each other. In other words, I want them to reside on the same plane. This is a plane-on-plane connection. So I'll click the check mark. The next one, this face and this face need to reside together, so again I'll click the check mark. And for a minute I'll click OK. Notice now I have base instance number 1 is the bottom one, and it has the F telling me it's fixed. And base instance number 2 has a minus sign telling me I still have some motion left. If I grab hold of it, I can see I can move it up and down. What we'll do is we're going to make a new mate, and this time I'm going to click the distance tab and choose the top face of base 1 and the bottom face of base 2, and it snapped to a 1-inch distance. That's what I had typed in there. Let's let that be 6 inches. Okay, so zoom up, there we go, and I'll click the check mark. Notice the minus sign is now gone from base number 2, instance number 2, and if I try to grab it, it says, again, this component is fixed, is fully defined, and it cannot be moved. At this point, I'm going to save the assembly, and I'll just call it assembly 1 for now. And we're going to talk about another way of creating parts. So this gets into the top-down discussion. What I'd like to do is create some cylinder supports that have to hold up the base at a certain height. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Insert Components, and I'm going to insert a new part. The first thing it's asking me is where is this part going to be located, and I'm going to tell it to locate it on the plane of base 1. So I'll click that check mark. What happened here on the right, in the model tree, part 6, located within assembly 1, instance number 1 of that part 6 has now been opened. Everything is turned to gray except for that part, and I'm actually within the sketch. So I have a sketch emblem over here letting me know I'm within a 2D sketch, and I have some new tabs that are in front of what we've typically had within sketches, and these just have to do with assemblies. So I can turn on or off the transparency of other items, and right now I am editing a component, and I can exit that component. What I want to do within here is I'm going to draw a circle, and by highlighting the circle of one of these holes, the center is now appeared as a black circle. Now I can snap to that center point, and you can see there's a yellow coincident arrow that's letting me know, or icon letting me know that this is going to be snapped. Okay. I'm going to make 2 circles. There's one, there's the other. They're concentric to each other, and if I hit escape, you should notice that it's actually black here in the center. The location is centered. So what I want with these, I want one of the dimensions, I want this curve, and I'm holding control down, this curve, I want them to be equal to each other. Okay, and I want this one and this line here to be tangent to each other. Let's see if that works. No, I think I want it to be the other way. So let's get rid of this constraint. Delete that constraint. And I want this line and this circle to be tangent to each other. Okay, now I've fully defined this part without giving a single sketch, a single dimension. The dimensions have come from another part located somewhere else. So if I exit the sketch, now I'm within sketch 1, and I'm going to go to Features, and extrude. I'm going to use this sketch I just created, and instead of blind, I'm going to go up to surface, and I'm going to choose the top surface here of instance number 2. Click the check mark, and again I have now created a part in which I have not entered a single dimension. Instead, I've used values from the assembly to control the part. I'm going to exit the part and return to the assembly, and we'll see now that this part is fully defined and that it cannot be moved. So let's go ahead and click Save. When I click Save, I get a new message, and unfortunately you can't read it very easily, so let me tell you what it says. It says that there are 2 files that have been modified. One of them is the assembly, and the other one is part 6. So I'm going to click I want to save all, and then I get another dialog that comes up that warns me at this point part 6 doesn't really exist. It exists as a theoretical entity inside the assembly. Do I want to keep it saved internally so I would never see a .sldprt file, or do I want to save it externally? I'm going to save it externally, and I'll single click here to get into the name one, and I'll call it standoff. It's a standoff cylinder here. So I'll click OK. And now this file really exists. You see it doesn't have brackets anymore. It does, however, have this arrow sign after it, and that lets me know that this file was created using other parts of the assembly. Even within, I can see that both the sketch and the extrude have references coming from the other parts of the assembly. Let me show you why this is a good thing and also why it can be a dangerous thing. The good thing about it is, if I were to edit this distance, so I went to mates here at the bottom, I'm going to do edit feature, and I'm going to change it from 6 inches to 4 inches. Hit enter. What we notice is that the distance of that cylinder, that extrusion, just changed automatically. So the part information is being created from the assembly as opposed to the other way around. So this is really useful when you're in the design phase, so you don't have to remember to go back and change every part. You make your functional changes and your parts will automatically adjust. When you're finished designing, however, once the parts are physically made, you don't want these changes to accidentally happen. So my recommendation is, when the design is finished, we're going to right click on standoff, and one of the options here is list external references. And this is going to tell me exactly every time that that part needed a reference to something else. And notice what I can do is I can lock all, and if I lock all, if I go back into the mates, there's now an asterisk next to it. And I change that distance back to 8 or 6. The part no longer follows. So lock all is fixable. We can go back into list and each one of these, I can unlock them all, click OK, and the feature returned. If I break it, then there's no going back. Okay, so my recommendation is when you're finished, you at least lock, if not break, your references. And that's a quick introduction to assembly concepts with mates, as well as top-down design using in-place components.